If you want a sneak peek on what a top level brokerage's coaching call looks like to make agents millions of dollars, this is the call for you. I know it's a little bit of a longer video, huge value throughout it. Let me know your feedback in the comments.
David, are you out there?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Wonderful. How's everybody doing? I don't think.
All yours.
Cool. All right. I will, so I'll just go into briefly how I got 18 listings when I first started the business at, 18 years old. The main thing for me really was being consistent with dialing, which I will share with you guys some sheets that really helped me that I've created. So I'll screen share in a second. But at 18 years old, I was fresh in the business, just turned 18. And first month I got 6 listings. Next month I got 2. And then the following month I got the remaining to get 18. And all of that was from for sale by owners, expireds, for rent by owners, not past clients yet, obviously. But those are really my main pillars. Like Mark was talking about, the main pillars to the business. And it has made me, successful to today. So I will try to figure out how to screen share real quick. Let's see. All right, you guys should be able to see my screen now. If you can't, just type something out. But this will first go into my daily schedule. So again, consistency for me was the biggest thing. So I made a detailed schedule fitting in where I'm prospecting every single day. You'll see from 8 to 10, Monday through Friday, I am dedicated to prospecting. I don't let anybody bother me or do anything like that. 8 to 10 is strictly for me building my business. And then Saturdays, 10 to 12 is the time for me to prospect, and Sundays I take off. But you see, if you create a daily schedule blocking everything out, you can really itemize your time efficiently and effectively. So you're not, in this business, it's easy to get completely scattered, and blocking out time like this is key. So if you guys don't have a daily schedule, I recommend making one fitted to obviously your schedule. You see 8 to 10, I'm prospecting. I get in the office around 7:45. I prep for my day real quick, and then strictly prospecting. 10 to 12, I'm following up through KV Core. 12 to 1:45, take a break, go to lunch, go to the gym, then do all the boring administrative tasks. Then I go on. I strictly set my appointments for 3:30 to 6 o'clock. I don't just throw random appointments because that'll really throw off my day. So when I'm dialing, I know from 3:30 to 6, my calendar's cleared strictly for appointments and meetings, like listing appointments, showings, things like that. And then 6 to 7 is just my rest of my afternoon, jujitsu, reading, studying, all that stuff. So blocking out my time has been key for me, and remaining consistent. I know a lot of agents will, prospect 4 hours one day, get burnt out, get really tired, and then don't do it for the rest of the week. If you just consistently block out, whether it's 2 hours for you, an hour a day for you, an hour and a half, all you need is roughly about an hour and a half a day to make be a top listing agent in this business. So that is how I kind of itemize my day out to really focus on the core of my business, which is building up leads. I mean, that's what I focus on in my business. Very small portion of it is doing the administrative tasks. The main bulk of it is prospecting and lead follow-up. So that's kind of what got me to that 18 listing mark right away. I created the schedule right away and I stuck to it. And here we are 2 years later, and I'm still sticking to it. The other sheet that I created that I think helped me out a lot is this sheet right here, which if you guys want to take a screenshot or if you want me to email it to you, I certainly can. But this sheet was key for me. I break down what my goal was. Everybody has the goal of 6 figures. So I want to make 6 figures a year. Then I break down the commission, my average sale commission, so I can figure out exactly how many sales I need every year to reach my 100K goal. So if you need 100K, you have an average commission of $3,000. Then you need roughly 34 sales every single year. Then I like to break down exactly how many listings are needed, because not 100% of your listings will sell. So if 75% of them sell, you need 46 listings every single month, which is 4 listings a month, to make, again, $100,000 a year in this business. Then you break it down even further. You go to listing appointments needed. If you do 61 appointments and you close 75% of them, that'll get you to 46 listings. So you need to set 6 listings a month, which is just over 1 listing listing appointment every single week. And then exactly how many contacts needed. I like to run all of my numbers. I track all of my numbers, so I know exactly how many contacts I talk to set 1 appointment. And for me, it's 35 contacts per 1 appointment. So I know every year I need to at least talk to 2,135 contacts, which is roughly 178 new people every single month, which if you're prospecting expireds for sale by owners, for rent by owners, that's a very doable number. And again, that number directly translates like mathematically to 100K a year. And then I break down how many hours every single day if I prospect 6 days a week to make that 100K. And it's an hour and a half a day. It's even less than an hour and a half a day. It's you need to talk to 8 fresh people every single day mathematically to make 100K a year. So this is a very fluid sheet for me. My numbers are constantly changing. Sometimes I'm a better closer. Some months I'm not a better closer. My contact ratio changes, but having a fluid sheet like this, knowing what your average commission is, knowing all your numbers will make it a lot more doable when you actually are prospecting and, talking to people, because sometimes it's difficult when you get, like Mark was saying, constant rejection. It can be a very difficult thing to do 6 days a week. But if hey, if your only goal is I need to just talk to 8 people, whether they list with me or not, I need to talk to 8 people every single day. If that's your goal, not setting an appointment, it makes it a lot more rewarding at the end of the day, knowing I talked to 8 people. I know by my numbers that'll lead to 100K at the end of the year. So again, I know it's kind of too big on the screen to screenshot the entire thing. If you want me to email it to you, just let me know. I can email it to you directly. But you want to kind of create your own sheet with your own numbers, and your goal may not be 6 figures. It might be 50K or it might be 200K, whatever your goal is, whatever your average commission is. Recommend just sticking to the script. And I look at this sheet every single morning, and it keeps me motivated on track, because some months, let me tell you, some months really suck and some months are really great. So knowing exactly what I need to do really helps me out. That's really what I did to get most of my listings. Most of them have come from for rent by owners. I am a huge supporter of calling for rent by owners. If you haven't heard of rent by owners, they're kind of more niche. It's a owner of the property typically an owner putting their house on Zillow for rent instead of for sale. So the gold mine in these types of contacts they are typically investors owning anywhere from 2 to 30 properties. So if you do a good job on selling one, and this is again how I was able to get so many listings in the beginning. I talked to one guy. He had a property. I sold it. He said, "Hey, Dave, I got 6 others that I'm considering liquidating right now." And I listed all 6 of those right away. So that's how I was able to grow such an expensive business so quickly, is working primarily with investors who have multiple properties. It's also, it's a great, investors are the best contacts to have, because their job is to buy and sell properties for a living. So if you're their main realtor, that's a huge thing for your business. So yeah, for rent by owners are the biggest thing. I have all of my scripts, and I will put this link into Zoom as soon as I figure out how to. But all my scripts are on this website. So if you put in your email, it'll automatically send you all the scripts I use every day. I call expireds from 8 to 8:30 every single morning. You want to call them fresh right out the gate, because thousands of other realtors are calling them. Then I call for rent by owners, then for sale by owners, and then I'll go into expireds that have been expired for a year or 2 out. And that's what I do consistently every morning to take a tremendous amount of listings. I can open this up to more of a Q&A if that is something that would be valuable to you guys. I don't know if you can respond back through a Q&A or through the chat.
Yep, or they can just unmute. Let me just add, David, that was great. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think what's valuable is that you keep a running average of what it takes you, so you can readjust, meaning, you have a year's worth of calls and you can see, I've made this many calls. This is how many answers I've gotten from that many dials. This is how many appointments I got, and this is how many listings I got. As that time period expands, 2 years, 3 years, and he keeps track, he can be adjusting by looking at the averages and saying, okay, my averages are changing. I'm getting better at my calls. People are getting worse at responding to me. Those 2 things are going to be a factor. If he gets better, that's great. He's going to close more appointments. But if the people are getting more difficult or more resistant, he's got to factor that in too. And that keeps his 100 grand in his mind and attainable, because everything else is adjusting around it. I need to make more calls because I'm getting a hold of less people. People are busier. They're not answering their phone. They don't know who I am. They're not picking up. I need to dial more, those kinds of things. And as the averages get longer and longer periods of time, the numbers get better and better in terms of realistic. And so, but
yeah, no, tracking the numbers allows you to readjust accordingly. Whether this month I need to prospect more, or next month, not so much, or I need to dial different leads. Tracking the numbers is massive.
And the one thing I wanted to add, and this is why I bring people like David to you and to speak with you and recommend things like Jason Pantana and Tom Ferry and some of the people, because those are people that are actually doing it. And one of the things I told David was that the thing that makes him authentic and followable, whether it's on his YouTube page or anywhere else, is the fact that he's actually doing it. I almost made the mistake one time, and I won't mention the agent's name, but there was an agent who was selling their for sale by owner and expired package. And, they were touting how great they were. And they had a huge following on Instagram and, 300 and some thousand followers. And, for $497, you could get exactly what she was using. And I almost pushed the button and bought it. And then I thought to myself, I would never spend even $1, let alone 500, for someone that I didn't really know if they were doing it or not, because there's so many people out there that have all the systems and all the answers, but yet they're not actually doing it. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found out that she had sold maybe 25 houses the last year up in Michigan. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is a person who's only sold 25 houses in a year that's acting like they're this big guru, and yet they haven't actually done it. And so I tried to encourage David, and I would encourage anybody else that's going to do a YouTube page that wants to share, like David has a heart to share and wants to help other people do well, as he does well, is to actually continue to go out and do it and track the numbers like he is and follow it, so that when he tells you it takes 1,000 dials to get a hold of 100 people, and 100 people that he talks to get 2 appointments to get 1 listing, whatever those numbers are, those are the things that you can trust, not someone who's selling a system for $500, then you get it, and it's like something that they regurgitated from something they bought, and they changed it a little bit, and now they're telling you to use it, but they don't even actually know if it works.
Yeah, I completely agree. And on the screen here, this is my month of August. So the only 4 things that I track every day are how many hours I prospected, how many contacts I made that day, how many leads I generated that day, and how many listing appointments I set that day. So see, for the month of August, I totally hit that 100K goal. And that's a very successful month for me. I prospected 50 hours. I talked to 301 people, which if you remember, I think the number was 178 people I need to talk to a month. So I destroyed that goal. And then down here, I broke down, it gives me it's 5.9 contacts per every hour. It's 9.5 contacts before I get a lead. So that's why prospecting so great, because your numbers are going to be totally different than mine. It's very personal, but you know exactly what you need to work on. And you can mathematically prove how many hours your time is worth. So if I prospect an hour and a half, I know I'm going to get a pretty solid listing lead. I know every other day I'm roughly getting a listing appointment. So I recommend, the only 4 things I really track, and I haven't found a need to track anything else, is hours prospecting, contacts made, leads generated, and listing appointments set. And if you track that every month, you have your yearly number, and you can hold yourself accountable as to, did I hit my goals? Whether or not this month was great for me, if I got a lot of listings or not, I know if I consistently do this, it'll work out in the long run, just based on law of averages. So that's the 4 things I recommend to start tracking right away. And again, if anybody has questions, just feel free to jump in, ask any questions if I left something out.
Well, what gave me an idea, David, as you were saying that you're for rent by owner, was for Brant, who's in commercial, right? And yet, even though we're talking about usually residential listings, Brant's here on the calls, he's listening, he's absorbing, he's learning, right? And Brant's a young guy, but he's not 18. And so he's opened himself up to say, you know what, I can still learn things. I can learn from this 19-year-old. I can learn from anybody. And that's the attitude to have, is that you can learn from anybody. But Brant, what I can tell you is that the idea that first popped into my head as I saw you on the call and him talking about for sale, for rent by owners, was for lease by owners. And I thought about it and said, okay, 2 ways you can make money there. You can call up the person who's got their, property for lease and say, look, have you considered selling it? The market is unpredictable right now. We don't know if it's going to drop greatly or if it's going to stay consistent. It may be a good time to get the property sold, especially if you don't have a tenant, and let the next owner, get their own tenant so that they feel like they're confident in who's in there. Or if they say, no, we're not going to sell it, or we don't want to sell it, or it's not the right time to sell it, tax purposes, whatever, then say, hey, why don't you let me list it for you and find you a tenant? So that just came to my head as he was talking about that, brand, as a way for you to benefit from this and do your prospecting. Your numbers are going to be a lot different. You're not going to have quite the number to call, but you could certainly pepper an area, circle prospecting, where someone else sold a shopping plaza in the area that you service, and now you send out a ringless voicemail or a postcard and say, hey, the shopping plaza around the corner just sold from you. Have you thought about what your property's worth? Now might be the best time to sell.
Absolutely.
Easy things like that.
Yeah, just I mean, I love for rent owners, but I like to talk to investors. I'm an investor myself, so it's it works for my style. But you might be really good at for sale banners, whatever it is. But just calling and getting your name out there, talking to 8 to 10 fresh people every single day is what will make your business, whether it be even foreclosures or however it is, whatever you feel most comfortable prospecting. I found these lead sources to be the best for the market we're in right now, but it's constantly it'll change. I mean, for sale by owners won't really ever go away or expires, but as the market changes, foreclosures might pick up, as Mark was saying, and things like that.
Yeah, David, I have a question. This is Andrew.
Hey, yeah.
Curious. So what do the conversations leading up to your follow-up look like, and what does your follow-up look like that you're doing in KV Core? How are you using KV Core? What kind of follow-up are you doing with that?
Yeah, no, great question. KV Core has, I'm sure you guys seen it, fantastic tools with, the listing evaluations and the core presents and things like that. Typically my follow-up, my 10 to 12 schedule of lead follow-up, that's strictly my time on KV Core. And when I'm doing, anytime I have a contact or a lead in my KV Core, I always have a task assigned with them, because that'll give me a reminder to talk to them. So I have anywhere from 20 to 30 tasks every day, because you can schedule out when it reminds you to talk to them. And it'll look like just either giving them an update on what the house is worth. So I'll run some quick numbers. I might send them a core present, and just give them a general update, or touching base on, how their move went or anything in their life, just to have a reason to talk to them again. And it's different per person. So for sale by owners, it's usually seeing how their showings are going, and if they're getting very annoyed with how many realtors are calling them, and if they're ready to list yet. For rent by owners, it's all about giving them the numbers on what it would look like. And even if they say, I don't really want 200,000 right now, but maybe next October, I always set a task to do that. And in 3-6 months, I'll reach out to them, give them another price update, let them know how much equity they have in the house. So that's how I use KV Core. I mean, if I don't have a task assigned to a lead or a contact in my KV Core, I will most certainly forget about them, because I have so many. I'm getting a lead or two every single day just from prospecting that'll add up, and I'll forget about them eventually. So I always have tasks, and that's what I'm doing from 10 to 12 is just attending to those tasks of what I've already typed out, what they need to move along.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And that's how I found KV Core. I'm still learning KV Core. I just switched over to Platinum, and before that I was using Boomtown. So I'm still learning all the tools KV Core has, but the tools they have are phenomenal, even for like the nurture leads, the past clients that you want to follow up with, just the automatic AI emails it sends out. I'm still learning more about that. I'm growing in that area. But the main thing I tell people is always have a task. I've seen some people's KV Core and there's like no tasks, and they kind of go through all of their leads every other Friday, and it's just you're gonna miss a lot of things. Or another realtor like myself who has a schedule and a routine to call them is gonna get to them before a realtor like that does. So that's how I mainly use KV Core.
Hey, David, I would love for you and Andrew to get on a conference call with KV Core, one of their, top people that really knows the system well, and kind of let you ask them questions of how purchasing Boomtown is going to benefit KV Core, because knowing Boomtown, a lot of the things that were very beneficial in it. And there are a number of them, like the AI and the follow-up. I thought Boomtown was one of those. When we originally had it back in the days when it first started, and I knew Greer pretty well, it was a great system because it would talk to the buyers in a way that was very interactive. Like it wasn't really called AI back then, but it was predictability, they called it. And they would predict, okay, if the buyer's looking at this property, they might like this other property. And a lot of my clients' feedback was they like that. It wasn't intrusive. It wasn't wasting their time. It was like, yeah, they opened me up to maybe looking in this area or this property or this price range. And so if you and Andrew got in a call, I think it would be beneficial for all of us to maybe talk about the ways in a coming meeting where you could say, hey, this is how KV Core can help you get listings, and here's how it's benefiting from purchasing Boomtown.
Yeah, I would be happy to. I know Boomtown had a like more of a, it was a very culture based, and then they had the AI tools that Boomtown had were phenomenal. But yeah, KV Core has really, from what I've seen, it's quite the superior CRM system when you're following up with people or setting tasks or to-dos or what you want to call it. So, but I'd be happy to hop on a call with KV Core. Does anybody else have any questions or anything in the chat? Anything I might have left out? It's all pretty simple. I mean, it's simple. It's not easy to do, but it is simple. It's just prospecting an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, knowing your numbers and sticking to a schedule, which 98% of agents aren't doing. So if you do that, you're already in the top 20% just by sticking to a schedule. Whether you are the worst salesman in America or you are, you know, the best salesperson in America, your numbers won't lie, and you can always grow in those areas.
So David, you seem pretty disciplined. Your schedule is very disciplined. I know that human beings in general are not. Hard for us. And one of the reasons we all get into real estate in the beginning is we can have a flexible schedule. We can do our own thing. We don't have to work 9 to 5. You know, if I came into this and I saw your schedule and I was thinking about getting into real estate, and to be successful, I had to be like you, I would look at it and go, well, that doesn't really look like a, you know, flexible schedule in 9 to 5. But I guess the question I have is, what kind of encouragement can you give them to show, like, you're very disciplined? You have your jujitsu on there, and that's a very disciplined thing to begin with. And you have your schedule very rigid, which is very uncharacteristic of a 19-year-old. You know, I'm 55 and, you know, I have a schedule, but it's many times hard to stick to for other reasons. You know, things come in, the deal's falling apart. This agent needs help. This happened, you know, so it's tough to stick with that schedule. How could you, like, share with them how some real things kind of mess you up every once in a while, but also share with them how you've been able to discipline yourself to stick with this, and kind of tell yourself it kind of, and this is what I would guess, but you tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like to me, your goal is bigger than your hurdles, meaning your pursuit of your ultimate goal is more important. It's bigger to you than the things standing in your way.
Yeah. So a couple of things I mean, the discipline thing, it is totally true. My end goal is a lot bigger. You know, growing up, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I was, you know, pretty on the low end of it, Section 8 housing, things like that. And I saw how the lack of money affected my family and just the household there. So getting into a business like real estate early on, my idea was I can make, you know, an unlimited amount of money at a very young age, because my age has nothing to play with the amount of income I bring in. It's just purely based on results. So that's kind of my why is big. You know, your guys' why might be your kids or whatever it is, whatever things you've gone through in your life, it might be more based on that. But the schedule, you know, I'm not perfect, so I do you know, veer from the schedule. Stuff happens, things come up, but always having a baseline to go back to, something that I know I can go back to always. So whether something comes up in the middle of my prospecting and it's the biggest issue ever and I have to take care of it, you know, obviously I will, for my clients and for the reputation of my business, but I know always I have this 8 to 10 blocked out 90% of the time. And, you know, 90% of the time I'm locked on my schedule. So that's really how I've, you know, stuck to it, just realizing it's a baseline. Things come up, you know, you might get doctor's appointments, anything can come up, but having some sort of baseline to always fall back to, always to keep you accountable, you know, and some days aren't the best. And, you know, I realize that, and I hold myself accountable, and I make sure the next day is going to be better than the previous day. And I make sure I'm very dedicated and disciplined to my schedule, because I know my schedule is the core of my business. And, you know, like I said, mathematically, if I just do the numbers and I do the work, it will go out to the end goal. Most people's end goal is 6 figures. So that's what really keeps me motivated to stick to, you know, a very disciplined schedule. And I'm a pretty disciplined person. I've always been, you know, a bit of a maniac on my scheduling and things like that. But the great thing about this business is, yes, your schedule is flexible. The downside is you have zero accountability. But if you're not a morning person, you know, you can rearrange this entire schedule to work for you. When people get in the business just to kind of work here and there, kind of do this, that's when they fail. But the big pro is having a flexible schedule, but you just need to have something consistent. Whether you like to prospect in the evenings and work a little bit later, whatever it is, that's the benefit, not just kind of showing up here and there, doing what you feel like when it is. convenient for you. So that's kind of how I think about the business.
David, do you keep a daily journal to see how closely what you actually did compares to what you plan to do?
Yeah, so I'm very goal oriented. So I journal every morning, and I journal more just for like, happiness and things like that, to just keep my sanity and make sure I'm in line with everything I'm doing. But um I make sure I do goals. So yearly I have goals, and just similar to how I broke this down, where I break it down from, top down. Like I have the big goal, and then I have what I need to do hourly to reach that big goal. I do my life goals in a similar way. And then I journal to make sure I'm, every month the first of every month I'll go back and I'll make sure I did what I needed to do for that month, and journal about that. So I think that's what you meant by journal. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. Just kind of, saying, okay, because what I try to do is I'll go back. My schedule has an outline. And this was great when it used to be a handwritten book that I kept with me, because I could go back and look at last year's book and say, okay, I did this much business, and I would see how many appointments I was going on per week, listing appointments, what I was doing, how much volleyball I was playing, what, this or that, there were all those things in the schedule because it was handwritten, and it was
Right.
what I actually did, as opposed to, because, you didn't, at least when you had a handwritten schedule like that was a book, you didn't write stuff in advance. Like you typically didn't write a block for next week or next month that said prospecting from 8 to 10.
Right.
So it was the journal. Now I think with schedules, what we tend to do is we have the blocks of time that are what we want to do, but we don't always add in what actually happened that day. Like, did you go on a listing appointment, and put that in there? So I try to go back a little bit and journal on my schedule and say, okay, this is what I actually did in that time frame.
Yeah, so this is the sheet that's similar to that. So like the numbers up here are the days of the week. So down here is, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. And, so the 30th is August 30th. I prospect 2 hours. I talked to 11 people. I generated one lead that day, and I set one appointment. So that's the closest thing I have. And if anybody wants this, I'm happy to email this, because I have all the um, formulas broken down in here. So as soon as you input,
That's nice. The fields
yeah,
are
as soon
already
as
set up.
yeah, as soon as you input it, it'll just add it up out here. So I'm not adding it myself. It'll add it here, and it'll do all the math for me and divide everything. So I can easily email this to the group if that's beneficial to anybody. But I try to keep it simple. I mean, these are the main things that I know are making me money: is me prospecting, the contacts I made, the leads I generated. You see, I don't have like open houses scheduled out, because they're not my thing. I'd rather prospect an hour and a half than do an open house. If that's your thing, if you're a killer closer at these open houses, then make sure you go on 2 to 3 a week. Do the Friday nights, do that, and schedule it out.
I'd be curious to see if you had like a source to see like the difference of how many listings you got for rent by owners, for sale by owners, expireds, circle prospecting, sphere of influence. That would be a great breakdown. Even if you don't have it now, if you do it in the future over the next 6 months, it'd be great to see, where you're actually sourcing, because everybody always asks for the magic pill.
Right.
And the only thing that can kind of prove that is time and doing it. So, we might say today, hey, what are you doing? You might not have that exact number, but in 6 months from now, come back and say, hey, let's look at, you got 30 listings over the last 6 months. What was the source of those listings? Well, and you look at the pie chart and you say, okay, majority is coming from expireds. That just tells you, okay, the focus more of my time should be expireds, because that's where the bulk of my money, my production is coming from. And I think that's what we fail to do. We've done a good job on the luxury teams knowing that, look, the bulk of ours comes from expired. So there's not many for sale by owners in luxury. There's a few. You can do circle prospecting, but it's not as valid as it is in the lower price ranges in luxury. So sphere of influence is great, and expireds is good, because you can do in that what the last agent didn't do, which is usually marketing or anything relevant to luxury. But
Yeah.
So I think that's valuable, and something that you might want to track in the future if you don't already. And then, maybe in 6 months we ask you again, hey, what have you seen? What's changed? Because our market's going to change, and we have to be ready for it. Our average has been over the last 2 decades, around 2 million listings on the market at any time. Now it's fallen to 950, and that's less than half.
Yeah, and it allows you to readjust from there. I did have something. So the last brokerage I with had this. I'm sure someone's heard of it, Sisu, and it tracked it all for me. Now there's a system in place here where I track on a Google sheet. I need to make a pie chart and figure out exactly where my business is coming from. But yeah, knowing that is just like knowing your numbers. So I'll get more organized with that in the next 6 months, and I'll have, you know, a lot of data to show where most of my business is coming from. But most of my business right now is coming from FSBOs and for rent by owners. And I'm starting to get better at getting business from expireds because I knew that was an area I was lacking. So I'm readjusting my approach to be dialed in on these expired leads. But that's why knowing your numbers is great, because you know personally what you're lacking on and what you need to do better on.
Nice. Anybody have any questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, this is going to be a great recording, and it'll be definitely something that hope gets played over and over. Jared, Andrew will have it up on the Facebook page within a day or so. And any last questions before we head out?
Yeah, if you guys, again, I had this link will give you, I put the link in the chat. That's all the scripts I use daily. If you want to just email me directly, I can send it to you directly, but that's the scripts I created that I use daily. So you guys can, you know, it's always good to have multiple scripts. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Thanks for stepping in. And Jared had actually pushed my call back to 11:30 because he didn't know I had you stepping in. So thanks, Jared, for doing that. But I got to listen, which I'm excited about. So we will see you next Tuesday. If you guys need anything, get on the schedule for a coaching appointment on Wednesdays. Hit me up with a text if you need anything, or give me a call.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, David.